Hello and welcome to Surveyor Says, the podcast from the National Society of Professional Surveyors. Each week, we bring you fascinating guests that are involved in the profession of surveying. We cover a lot of ground, including Table Lay Talk with Gary Kent, Point of Order with the NSPS Joint Government Affairs Team, Future Focus, highlighting current and future leaders of the profession, and everything survey-related in between. Thanks for joining us here on the podcast, and hope you enjoyed listening to this episode of Surveyor Says. Hello and welcome to another episode of Surveyor Says. My name is Tim Burch, and I'm here today with looking across the screen from me in our virtual studios is NSPS Executive Director Curt Sumner. And today we'd like to bring you kind of a 2020 in the rearview mirror. And let's just hope, Curt, that 2020 is going to be in the rearview mirror with all the stuff that's gone on. And vaccines are now being distributed, and hopefully we're turning a corner and see how things go.
That is so true, Tim. We've learned a lot of things as a result of COVID-19, and not all of those things we learned are necessarily good things, but we needed to learn them anyway.
Yeah, exactly.
Maybe for good or ill, one of the things we learned is that, at least from our perspective here at our office, and I think people in business as well, we learned that we can actually work not sitting at a desk in a building somewhere.
Right.
And the downside of that is you also realize that the personal interaction you have with the people you deal with on a daily basis is a lot more important to you than you might have realized that it was.
Exactly.
And anybody listening to the podcast today is probably aware that we have a really small staff. There are just 4 of us, and 5 for the short run, while Bob Jupin is working with his successor. But in that kind of environment, similar to working in a small surveying business, everybody becomes family.
Exactly.
So things that happen with them are important to you. Staying abreast of what's going on in their lives is important to you, just like your quote natural family. So that part of it has been difficult, not being able to look at each other in person. Obviously, we can see each other on the screen.
Sure.
When we're having conversations. But having said that, another one of the really good things that's happened with it is that I'll just mention Trish in particular, because as you know, she's the workhorse for getting things done for us, and she's got the skills to do those kind of things. But we've learned that we can do lots of different things in this type of format or on the Zoom or GoToMeeting or whatever people are using. And we've seen that manifest itself among the state societies. I know I've been on a number of events with some of the state societies in this format, and it's worked out pretty well. And I know here in the office, Trish has set up those types of things for several of our state societies.
Exactly.
Help them get things done. So there's good and bad that's taken place as we've gone ahead. And of course, the really bad part is when people are effective health-wise or even in terms of losing their lives over all this. And I haven't heard too much about incidences where the ultimate had happened to our community, but I'm certain that it has, and we just don't know about it.
Exactly. And that's what we'll probably, I got to believe, as we get more into the conference time over the typical winter, even virtually, I think we're going to start hearing more of those names. I think they're going to come more. I mean, obviously we have lost some significant people in the NSPS orbit this last year, a couple past presidents, some people that were very near and dear to NSPS. But I think, unfortunately, we're going to probably become more aware of some of those people that we did lose this year through these state conferences and such. You're exactly right. For those who really fought for working remotely, working virtually, this has been probably, a dream come true to be forced into this, but I think we've also realized that you're exactly right. It is also that personal element as well that we do miss being in an office with others and being able to, we are social animals, whether we like it or not. But it's nice to know that we can still function as an organization. And it's also been nice to be able to offer that service to our state affiliates as well, that may not have the staff or the resources to do this, but we've been able to help foster that and for them to be able to continue to do business, whatever the new normal is. So, that was, you're right. That's a good and bad byproduct of it. One thing about COVID, when it did hit, one thing the big thing that NSPS was out in front of with our legislative team and such was to be in front of some of these legislators and the national and the federal legislators on being essential workers. If there was ever a profession, for the most part, that's solitude, it's surveyors, and John and JB and his team were big at pushing that.
Absolutely. And a lot of the state societies were involved in getting state recognition of that as well. And so that has certainly had a big impact. And I can't speak for everybody in the country, obviously, but I don't recall having a conversation with anyone among our membership who hasn't remained very, very busy this year, and in some cases busier than ever.
Yes. No,
I'm not sure exactly where all that comes from. What kind of work are people doing? I think I talked to somebody once and they sort of jokingly said, well, perhaps they're getting their property in order just in case. So, I don't know if that's actually true or not, but that was an element of it, though. It wasn't all design or construction or any of those things. It did have a quote land survey component to it.
Oh, exactly. I think there was a lot of dollars. With the way the economy was going along at the time when COVID hit, there was a lot of dollars programmed in for building and doing things in 2020. And this is just speaking from a personal view and what's happening on the private side of surveying. I think, a lot of those dollars were already programmed. They're being spent. And let's be honest. It was the political arena, not knowing we're going to go into 2021. People wanted to spend those dollars that they had in 2020 now to get some things going. And it seems like it's going to continue to roll through 2021. So, yes, practically everyone I've talked to nationwide in the surveying industry has had probably, I won't say their best year. I'll just say their busiest year. It's good to be busy. Sometimes it's not always for the best, but it beats the alternative.
Yeah, busy and profitable are two really good things to go together.
Yes, exactly. A couple of the highlights of what we're doing is we're actually revisiting some of the top stories that you, the listener / reader of News and Views, clicked on this year. That were their 20 top stories. There were a couple of pretty good ones that you look back and you go, oh yeah, that's I kind of forgot about that one, but maybe not. One of the things that we've tried to address at NSPS as the national advocate, as the national representation, we have lost a little bit of a touch with our programs, with TrigStar, with CST, and we've been able to continue those the best we can. More on the CST level within businesses. The TrigStar has been a little tricky with schools and remote learning, but CST has seemed to click right along. I think we're still going well with that.
That's true. The program's still really strong, and whether or not COVID impacted that one way or the other is hard to tell. But the program has still been going on. We, here in the office, Trish and Sarah are preparing themselves to sort of take over the grading side, not hand grading the way I've done it sometimes where I needed to, but through the Scantron machine that was out at Vincennes. And actually we ended up buying a new one. But that's all coming in house now. And so we believe it's going to put a bit more burden here, obviously, to get things done, but they're going through the training and picking it up really, really well. So hopefully it's going to mean that we'll be better able to get things done internally and get the word back out on a schedule that works for us. I can't guarantee that will happen because we don't know yet what that impact's going to be.
Right.
But certainly it's an element of the certification program that is a new element for us, bringing that here.
Exactly. So you'll see some more stuff with CST first of the year. We're going to keep pushing that and promoting that because it is a good program. It is something that our future generations of surveyors we're going to rely on that as one of the conduits feeding into the profession. So you're going to see more and more about CST. One thing about NSPS and being the national voice and the national advocate for professional surveying everywhere, for surveyors everywhere, let's talk about a little bit about legislation. And one thing, you and I joked about, it didn't show up on our top 20 because I think it just kind of become in the, it's such a mainstay that it might not necessarily hit a lot, but was the Legato, formerly known as Light Squared. This administration and the FCC, head of FCC has really pushed their agenda going more towards using that spectrum for 5G. And I guess, you and I are similar in that we've got family that live in rural parts of the country, that 5G and having Wi-Fi and data connections to those places is very important. But the way they're going about it, it's still going to affect, and it's not just surveying, it's anything that's going to be navigation. And so where do you think we stand as far as our legislative team in chasing that down and trying to help turn that back?
Well, the one of the best things we did was we got involved with a coalition, and that coalition is very strong, and it has done a good job of bringing to light what the issues are. And so we're hopeful as we move ahead that whatever's going on or whatever comes down from DOL or whoever's going to have an impact on it will not be harmful to what surveyors do or other people like us. It's not just us. There's an awful lot of people that can be impacted by this signal, for lack of a better term. And right now, it just seems to still kind of be up in the air. The approval, so to speak, has been given, but then there's an awful lot of blowback as well. That's being heard. At least it's not being dismissed. So I'm still uncertain of what the final verdict will be. I'm certainly hopeful that it's not going to be something that requires a whole retooling of the way we in our profession do things and what so many other people do. And it's just really, really hard for me to believe that with all of the effort being given to bring this to light, that it would just sort of cavalierly be allowed to happen.
Right.
Almost ignoring all of those issues. But I could be wrong. I was wrong one other time. I can't remember exactly when it was, but I know I have been wrong once before.
Well, that's the funny thing, talking to surveyors about Legato, and they're in the ones that they throw their hands up and say, how can they do this? Well, and what I also try to remind surveyors is that we're just a small slice of this. That we talk about our families back in rural parts of the country. I've got lots of cousins that are farmers, and that they rely now on autonomous self-driving tractors. That there is a huge part of the industrial or the agricultural world, the industrial world, where you've got self-driving forklifts and various things. This is all relying on GPS signals. Now, if that and GNSS signals that if this gets degraded, you're throwing a lot of things out the window. So not that it's not important to surveyors, it is important. And that, like you said, I always kid with my staff and people and surveyors that I talk to that if you didn't have that GPS receiver in your truck, how would you go about doing your job today? And they're like, well, that can't happen. Well, it can if it goes forward. So yeah, I agree with you. I can't believe that it would go away, but hey, we'll see. We got to continue that fight.
Yeah, one thing's for sure, though, and this is certainly attributable in a lot of ways to our lobbyist, J.B. Bird and JMPA for being our advocate among all these groups and getting us connected to them, I guess I should say.
Right.
There's a little article in the most recent XYHT magazine where they did a little interview with me, and they wanted to use the term leverage. And leverage is, I guess it's kind of the right term. I'm not particularly fond of the word leverage, but the bottom line is having the ability to have your voice heard and finding the right avenues for that and the right coalitions to help you get that done.
Right.
And that's really, really important to us. And this is just one of those issues, but certainly it's one in which we have a major stake. So we will continue to work with the other folks and hope to continue to have that influence and be part of a bigger group of people who are having the same kind of situations to find a way to coexist. I don't think there's going to be a, hey, let's shut everything down kind of thing happening, but just finding the way that we can coexist.
Exactly. Well, speaking of our legislative team, another big win for this year, the Digital Coast Act was put to bed. I think we're still waiting on the president to sign it, but it is cleared Capitol Hill. Once again, it's a shout out to our legislative team and the advocacy that NSPS is doing on behalf and for the benefit of all professionals everywhere. While it might not seem like a big deal to somebody in Kansas or Nebraska, Digital Coast aren't just the right and left coast. It's all the Great Lakes. It can be, the Mississippi, significant parts of some of these rivers. It's a big win for surveyors and mapping.
Oh yeah, that's for sure. And just this morning, I was talking to you before we went on the air. Just this morning, we found out that AAM 212 has been rescinded just in the last day, I guess. And our listeners who are involved in working on construction sites and that type of thing will recognize that AAM 212 had to do with the way surveyors are treated in terms of their contracting and working with contractors to serve their needs and still have that identification as a professional service and not as laborers and that kind of thing. And we've been dealing with AM 212 for several years now. And like I said, we just learned this morning that it has been rescinded. So we'll be getting that information out in the newsletter. The next 2 weeks, or I guess this week and next week, it's going to all be about the most read for this year. But we'll get that message out in different ways so everybody is aware of it, and to be thankful for what we have, but be mindful that things change. So we hope that it won't be turned around anytime soon. But it's a good win for us at this point.
Exactly. Because that is one question that is often raised to not just our officers, our directors, and people that are involved in the day-to-day operations of NSPS. Why am I a member? Why should I be a member? What value do I have? Well, these couple of issues right here alone is the value of the membership and belonging and being part of an association like this, because a lot of these things, whether people realize it or not, whether the licensed or the staff of the licensed surveyor realize it, these are things that are affecting the profession. And this is what the national voice is doing, the advocate for all of these professionals nationwide. A couple other things that are happening along those same lines. NSPS has a great relationship with National Geodetic Survey, NGS, and as most of our listeners will know, that we're in the process of going through a change both with the datums and the what has become a very, very interesting conversation / argument over the deprecation of the foot and changing it back to the metric standard of what the definition of the foot is to directly correlate to the meter. That's been an interesting conversation this year with all of that going on. The deprecation is going to take place at the end of, December 31st, 2022 is when the foot actually we won't do away with the U.S. survey foot, but it won't be recognized as the official unit. Obviously, COVID has played a little bit of a role into the upgrade of the datums. But there's been some other financial and just logistics issues that now the datums of the NSRS upgrades have been pushed out to probably 2024 or 2025. However, it's still important that our profession get an understanding of what's happening with their state plane coordinates and where it's all going. So
from a practical perspective, and all of us have psychological affection for our foot. There's no question about that. But from the perspective of the practical side, I'm not sure there's a good understanding of what this actually means in terms of measurement.
Right.
You know, what's the impact? And I know I've heard Michael Dennis talk about that a lot, and you've talked about it too. I don't know if you want to get into that at all in today's discussion, but everybody needs to read and figure out what that actually means.
Oh, exactly. And I mean, bottom line is that we know so much more about the measurements we do with the technology we're using, that with GPS, with GNSS, that everybody that relies on their NAD 83 coordinate systems, whatever, that was never really intended to utilize GPS technology, satellite constellation technology, that it's basically been force fit. This adoption and the deprecation, now adoption of the international foot to just the foot, is going to help make that all reality. That we know so much more about how we can measure accurately over long distances, especially with bigger coordinate systems. And Michael's got several seminars, webinars. There's stuff online to go chase down to understand it a little bit more. But the bottom line is technology is caught up to us surveyors, and we now have to adapt to the tools we use. Bottom line. And I know that's hard for some surveyors, old and young, of making changes, but it's the way that it goes. Speaking of changes, we now officially have new ALTA NSPS land title survey standards that have been approved by ALTA and NSPS and will take effect February 23rd, 2021. They're out there, they're posted, know them, get to understand them up, down, backwards, forwards, because that's what's going to be in place for next year. And I guess one bittersweet thing is that our chair, our chair of that committee, Gary Kent, he's stepping down from the chair, but not stepping away from the committee. What's your relationship? I mean, for those who don't know Gary Kent, what's the relationship been with Gary, with you for lots of years?
Well, I have the greatest amount of respect for Gary as is possible, I think, just because of probably his diligence as much as anything else. I mean, obviously he's very well informed about this particular topic as well as many others. And he shares that knowledge with people around the country very freely. But I don't know if calming effect is the right word to use, but in
That's
his leadership in that committee, that joint committee, everybody works together, and it's not an us versus them kind of situation. And I'm not sure that was always the case over the years, but it has been during his tenure as chair for sure. And even to the point where our counterparts from the ALTA side will sometimes, when we're looking at, okay, here's a proposed thing, and they'll say, you really sure you want to do that? That might not help you guys. So, I mean, it was,
right.
It's become a really good, close group of people who are all dedicated to finding the right answer or the right set of information. And the one thing, though, that won't ever change is that it's dynamic.
Right.
So you're not ever going to get to, okay, this is it. This will suffice through eternity. I don't think that's ever going to happen because things just continue to evolve. And technology is part of that, of course. Expectations of a client relationships change. And then the interaction among the players, whether the surveyors, the attorneys, the title companies, all those people involved, everybody has comments to make. And so it'll be an ongoing, fluid type of thing that I don't think we'll ever get to the bottom of. I'm always surprised, though, sometimes when we come across things in conversation or people point things out to us and we're like, yeah, that's right. How come we didn't see that last time? I mean, it's just interesting. But oftentimes it's not because you missed it. It's just a different circumstance.
Exactly. I can't tell you the number of times. Yeah, having the benefit of and the pleasure of sitting through a lot of those committee meetings, and you start talking about these things, and you come across one of those table A items, and it's, why didn't we think of that before? Yeah, you're right. That's exactly right. It's a fluid document. It is going to be ever changing because just like everything else, we do change, and things are going to continue to be dynamic. Speaking of dynamic, something that I do want to touch on just ever so briefly. A reminder to all the listeners out there, the Disaster Relief Fund. We've had several natural disasters of all kinds this year besides COVID. We've had wildfires. We've had hurricanes. We've had, I always get this pronunciation wrong, derecho or whatever that thing was, that storm that came through the Midwest. And now we're going through a pretty big nor'easter and snowstorm. Disaster is always there, and the Disaster Relief Fund was set up to benefit those surveyors that have been impacted by these types of storms and issues. It is there. One is a reminder to donate where you can, because that's 100% of the dollars go straight to the surveyor. And two, if you are a surveyor that has been affected by one of these things, that money is there to help. It's not necessarily, I mean, it's not a handout. It's to help you get back to where you need to be. So please keep that in mind. Once again, it's something that the National Society is very proud of having put together and wants to be there for that lending hand.
Absolutely. That's for sure. And I'll just give a thank you to anyone who's listening who has been part of contributing to that fund to help out our fellow surveyors. And that's really where a lot of the money comes from, is through donations. And so we're happy to be able to do it. Always a little surprised that people are reluctant to say, yeah, I've pretty much lost everything, but I'm not by myself. I mean, people are so selfless, and I'm saying selfless, not selfish.
Right.
Because, here they are in probably one of the worst things that's ever happened to them in their lifetime. And yet they have empathy for other people as well. So I think it speaks volumes about the kind of people we are, the people who choose to be in our profession. They just have that mindset and that demeanor, because after all, our job is helping other people, right? I mean, that's kind of why we're here. So it's I won't say it's refreshing, but in a way it is, to hear people have that attitude. But at the same time, you're like, hey, you really need help. Let's figure out a way to get you some help.
Exactly. You've hit it on the head of, to me, what one of the big characteristics of the surveyor and the surveying profession is it's humbleness. I think it's you're right. It's, well, yeah, I've lost everything, but I'm not that bad. That needs to go somebody that's more deserving. No, this is obviously it's impacted your life. Let us be there to help you. And I think it's an admirable trait for the entire profession. And but bottom line is, we're there to help. So let us know how we can help. All right. Not to take up too much more people's time. One thing I did want to mention, I think, I won't say it's the highlight of the year, but I think was one of the coolest things of the year, was all of the attention that Mr. Bob Vollmer got in the summertime, the 102-year-old surveyor from Indiana. And it wasn't like he was pictured and shown out using a transit and a chain. He was out there with a GPS receiver and a data collector and doing his job. That was a cool story that I think a lot of people really enjoyed seeing through the profession and beyond.
I've had the opportunity to meet him and have conversations with him a number of times. And I have to say that he is one of the most engaging people I think I've ever spoken with. And he's totally on top of his game. I don't care how old he is. I mean, he's pretty amazing. But it was really interesting to have been able to have those conversations with him through the years, and any recognition he's getting is well deserved, because he's a real trooper.
Very cool. Very cool. Well, 2020, like I said at the opening, hopefully it's somewhat in our rearview mirror, but we need to be able to look back and recognize the good things that have happened as well. 2020 was the year that our officers, our executive board, we now have 2 women on the executive board. That, to me, is fantastic. Our immediate past president, Lisa Van Horn, and our new vice president, Amanda Allred. We'll have to give a shout out also to Mark Sargent, our current president, Craig Amy, our secretary, and Bob Miller, our treasurer. We've got a great group of officers there that get a lot done, that really care about the profession, and it's been wonderful working with them. And
yeah, I was going to say, I think it's worth mentioning too that when you were talking about the diversity in our leadership, another thing that is critical for us as an organization and as a profession is youth. And through the Young Surveyors Network and getting younger people into our leadership stream, coming from the various states onto our board and committees, whatever, it's absolutely essential that we foster those relationships and keep those young people engaged and keep them wanting to be part of leadership, so that the profession itself can prosper and the organization that supports the profession is able to continue and have an up-to-date, if you will, perspective on whatever's going on in the world. So anybody who's listening to this out there who may have some interest or even a random thought about being part of leadership, whether it's at a state or hopefully at the national level, it's critical for us to maintain that stream of talent coming forward, and hopefully getting people started at an earlier age than we have all through the past.
Exactly. Well, I'm going to piggyback on that for just a second, because I had the pleasure of joining the first Young Surveyors Network virtual happy hour last night, and it was a neat endeavor. Obviously, we're embracing the virtual meeting platform, and it was really neat to hear that you've got all of these young surveyors. I think there was when I had to drop off, there was around 20 of them, that even through all the introductions, yes, they're surveying every day. Yes, they're raising young families young families. In fact, the one gentleman, his newborn was 8 days old. But yet, when you ask about the personal side of things, yeah, they're outdoorsy, they hunt, they fish, whatever, but they all say, but I'm always thinking about surveying. And that to me was the coolest part of it, is that they're engaged, they've bought into it, and they really enjoy it. And we need those types of individuals. And so I'm challenging the older generations, which I'll admit I'm part of. Don't look at the young generations and think that they're just flighty and they're focused, and they really are good for the profession. We have to make sure we stay open-minded and inclusive of everything they want to do as well. It was, like I said, it was a really great time. Hope to see that continue.
I'll just put on top of that, I think it's incumbent upon our leadership, whoever we are now and whatever age level we are. You and I are close to 20 years apart, I guess, but maybe more. But anyway, it's incumbent upon our leadership to become part of that and engage with the young surveyors group. Don't go try to tell them how to do their job. Just engage. I know it was about a year ago, maybe close to 2 years now. I was at a conference in Oregon, and you'll remember Chris Glantz, who was the leader of the Young Surveyors Network. I think he was even at that time. And they had an event during the conference at a restaurant somewhere. They had a meeting room kind of thing, but they had refreshments and that type of thing. But they were so energized. You couldn't have left that gathering without feeling totally energized about the next generation, because they were there. They were engaged. They wanted to be parts of things, but at the same time, they know how to still have fun with each other. And, it's not just five old guys with cigars sitting at a bar somewhere. It's just a multitude of different people.
Exactly.
Gender, whatever, age. But I would encourage anybody to participate in those kind of things with a young surveyors group. It will give you encouragement, but it will also give you a good sense that we have a good future coming along. And so our profession is going to be well taken care of, I think.
Yes, we will. Yes, we will. Well, we would be amiss if we didn't take a moment to thank our wonderful NSPS staff. We want to give them a shout out and especially, it's a little bit bittersweet. We've got one that's getting ready to walk out the door.
Yeah, Bob's been with us a long time, and I've said to him a number of times during his tenure here, I'm not really sure where we'd be without his knowledge and his diligence in making sure that, in his words, every jot and tittle is taken care of.
Mm-hmm.
But he has gotten our financial situation in such a good position in terms of how we keep records and keeping track of all the things that are going on and making sure we're living by the right rules and what have you, that he deserves a lot of credit for where we are financially right now. And I'm certain that his replacement, Christina Lee's, going to be exactly the same way. She certainly has those same characteristics, and maybe methodologies change a little because that's just the way people do things. But I'm very pleased to have her coming on board, and thankful that we've had Bob for all this time, because I guess you could probably look at me and say, well, that guy's not a financial genius, but nonetheless, it's important to have that well-rounded staff. Everybody has something that they do well, and you all work together to get to where you need to be. Yep.
And then we'd be amiss if we didn't give a little shout out. Well, actually, Bob's, I won't say replacement, Bob, the one that's going to slide into Bob's role as he rides out in the sunset. Christina, she's a fireball. She's going to be she's a great accountant. I think she's going to be a great addition to the team.
Right. And of course, Trish and Sarah are part of our team and have been for a long time. I think I hired Trish 2 years after I started this job. So she's been here 20 years. I've been here 22 years. And, but in a little different context, of course, but the same thing goes for them and for Trish in particular in terms of being able to grasp new technologies and bring us into the forefront and just take care of things, make sure things get done. She's amazing. And so NSPS is well served to have Trish Milburn on board.
Oh, absolutely. Well, like I said, 2020 hopefully is in the rearview mirror. Looking forward to 2021, and hopefully we climb out of COVID days and things. But look forward to this. We're going to be coming up on our soon. We'll be up on our 60th episode. We'll be well over 20,000 downloads, and we appreciate each and every one that take the time to listen to these every week. Bottom line is it's being your national voice, your advocate for the surveying profession, and that's what we're here for. So if you need us, reach out to us and let us know.
Absolutely. Looking forward to the coming year, and I guess everybody who's listening know that NSPS did decide to keep our current leadership as it is this year because they really didn't get to serve their terms the way you would typically do. So everything kind of gets pushed, not pushed back, pushed forward, actually. So we'll have the same set of officers in the coming year as we do now. And I think that'll be a good thing because, and as you said, if we can get through all this other stuff and make a somewhat normal transition, that'll be a good thing moving forward.
That will be good. So everybody that's out there listening, thank you once again. Thank you for downloading and listening. Hope you had a Merry Christmas, and will be a good New Year. And if you need anything, reach out to us. In the meantime, I'm Tim Burch, and looking wonderfully across the screen from me is Mr. Curt Sumner, and we look forward to talking to you more in 2021. Thank you.
Take care, everyone.
You've been listening to the Surveyor Says podcast, brought to you by the National Society of Professional Surveyors. If you have any questions about today's episode or any other topic, please email us at info@nsps.us.com, and we are here to help. Visit our website, nsps.us.com, to learn more about our association, the programs we administer and support, our sustaining members, and information about future episodes of Surveyor Says. Subscribe to the podcast on iTunes, Apple Podcasts, Google Play, iHeartRadio, Spotify, as well as our podcast host, Podbean. And remember, it's a great day to be a surveyor.